Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Rescue Michigan. Is it weekly live stream anymore? It feels like a daily live stream. Get some dramatic music to play us in. Welcome, everybody, tuning in on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X. We have some guests today. We are going to be talking about the hearing in the Kent County lawsuit. This is the lawsuit on who controls the Michigan GOP, initiated by co-chair Melinda Pago and other state committee members and vice chairs against Kristina Karamo herself. And we talked about yesterday there was a hearing on a motion to dismiss the case that did not succeed. The judge is interested in hearing the arguments of how this was entirely done properly by the books. We have, as Daniel Lawless, welcome on Facebook, some new faces. So let me introduce our panel here. We have a regular guest, Matt Wilk, of course, former Wayne Sixth chair. We have Nick Prill. And Nick, remind me, you were a member of the committee in Kent County. Is that correct? So you were local. This was right in your neighborhood.
Yep. I was on the Kent County Executive Committee until December when I resigned. So.
Excellent. And Holly Valade, you are the vice chair of the Monroe County Republican Party. Is that correct? And
correct.
You've been, and I think are you also a state committee member? Is that right?
I am. Mm-hmm.
And Mindy, you are a state committee member as well from, I want to say Oakland County. Is that right? Or is it Wayne? Yep. It is Oakland County. Very good. And I did hear that it was mentioned because we had this first of 2 days worth of testimony today. In this case, the testimony today was from Anne DeLisle, who was the secretary at the two meetings, the first on January 6th to remove Kristina Karamo's chair, another on January 20th, which was an election for a new chair, which ended up being Pete Hoekstra. And the other testimony was from expert witness we'll talk about in a second. But I did catch there was some questioning about who was the person who was credentialing these delegates. And if I recall correctly, you were one of those people yourself. Is that right?
Me? Yeah.
Excellent. And now, and you were in the courtroom today. You saw this entire thing play out for.
Yes. Yep. It was. Yes. The credentialing thing was interesting. He was trying to trip poor Annie up with that, but yeah, I was the January 6th one was in charge of credentialing for that one, and then the January 20th as well.
Outstanding. So I've heard a lot about what happened in the courtroom today. There have been some news stories, by the way. This is, let me pull one up on the screen right now. This was the story in MLive. Hold on here. Where is it? Here we go. Let me make this bigger. Meeting that ousted MIGOP chair Kristina Karamo was avowedly held. Expert testifies, and that's the story from today. So there was these two people that were testifying. One was Anne DeLisle, who was the secretary of the two events. The other was this guy, Thomas Balch, who you guys can see here. He is literally one of the authors of Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised 12th edition itself. And he was their expert witness. So, as I understand it, almost everything that was talked about today for 5 hours was basically, well, we've already gone over a million times now. The properness, that everything that was done to remove was done by the books, on the up and up, and everything else. But let me go to Mindy and Nick first, because why don't you let us know, like, what was your impression of how the judge was reacting to all this stuff? Because it sounded like it was a lot of time of going through some basic stuff that the judge probably already knew. In fact, at one point on my Twitter account, I made the comment, now the defense lawyer is going to blow his time arguing with the expert on cross. The judge is not going to be impressed by this. And then I say later on, that's exactly what happened. He spent his entire time arguing with an expert, as he did with Anne DeLisle, I thought. But Mindy, Nick, what was your take on all this?
Well, like I said, he was really, first of all, Campbell was trying to trip up Annie. His questions were.
By the way, I'm sorry. Before I don't mean to interrupt, but since you mentioned Campbell, this is a new face in the case.
Yes.
Donald Campbell was the attorney in the courtroom, not the brilliant Dan Hartman, nor Jim Copas, not that he could, nor Robert Owens, not that he could, but this gentleman, who on paper certainly looks like an outstanding attorney. He says he concentrates his practice in representing judges in judicial tenure commission matters and lawyers in attorney grievance matters, as well as legal malpractice defense. He's an associate adjunct professor, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, seems like a prestigious guy. Same law firm. I've seen this elsewhere. The attorney that represented the Kalamazoo County fake GOP in their hearing last week was from this very same law firm. Which, by the way, this law firm. Huh?
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, in fact, Kelly Howard is the CEO, and he is the president of the law firm. And I don't think this is a big issue to me personally that they have this page on their website about their diversity and all that they do for DEI, which is something any company might have to do. But since I've seen some of the KK people whining about how Warner, Norcross, and Judd has a very similar page as this one, this is the DEI page for this guy's law firm, which has a lot to say about diversity, equity, and inclusion. They say diversity is being composed of differing qualities and characteristics. Equity is recognition that the needs of individuals vary because of diverse characteristics. Is that what equity really means? That doesn't sound right to me. Mm-hmm. And inclusion is the respect and recognition of diverse individuals as valuable members of the group. They have an affinity group, which is totally not a left-wing thing, affinity groups. They encourage their lawyers to dedicate their time to activities focused on furthering the firm's diversity, equity, inclusion efforts. And in fact, they can bill for their time spent advocating for DEI. So there you go. And the chair of the DEI committee is actually the attorney in the Kalamazoo County case. That's interesting. But, again, I mean, this is all boilerplate stuff. A big law firm would probably have something like this. Any law firm would, which would make a big deal out of it. But you know what? Since the other side's making this big deal about the fact that Warner Norcross, the law firm that the plaintiff's attorneys work for, I thought this might be worth pointing out. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. I had to go on that aside, Mindy, since you mentioned this Campbell fella. So how was he? How was his? And to be fair, obviously if you have a shit case, doesn't matter how, if you're a lawyer, not a miracle worker. But how was he in the courtroom? How'd it go?
There were many times where you could see the judge going like this and like this and like during his questioning. So I could sense some not making a whole lot of sense, confusing. His questions were just, maybe that's how you are when you are on a losing team.
Well, one thing that everyone should understand is, so this is a bench trial. It's not really a trial yet. You're only at the initial stages of a preliminary injunction. When you're asking for what's called equitable relief, there's different stages, right? We talked about the TRO last week, temporary restraining order, and the standard for that's high. A preliminary injunction has a lower standard because that's the primary. What you're asking for is relief. You're not asking for money. You're saying this person needs to stop what they're doing. So it takes on the tenor of a trial. You take evidence. Okay. In previous pleadings, you assume that one side or the other side has been honest in what they've said. This is not the case. Now you're actually taking testimony on these things. So, and this testimony is in front of a judge and a judge only. So the standard things you might be used to about maybe confusing a jury a little bit or boring a jury or tiring a jury generally doesn't work because you got a judge here. And the judge is the one who's not only making the judge's rulings on admissibility of evidence, but also adding their own, whether they're weighing the evidence. So is the evidence admissible, number one? And number two, how valuable is it? So the judge as I understand, talked a lot about that. And that's something that would be expected in this sort of stage of the trial.
Yeah, I mean, basically, what are they going to introduce, or what could they have possibly introduced today or tomorrow that wasn't already in their pleadings the judge already isn't aware of, hasn't already thought about. And, for this, this attorney to come up and first he argues with Anne DeLisle about what the bylaws say. Then he argues with the expert about how to interpret the bylaws. You have to imagine the judge is going, what are you doing?
Well, remember, pleadings aren't evidence, though. So you can plead something.
Right. And so a lot of what was done today was laying the foundation, the authentication. Anne DeLisle was laying, the whole directive end was laying the record down.
Right. Saying, okay, so if you have a copy of the lawsuit, you could follow along. They want to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when there's statements of law, they leave that to the judge. When there's statements of fact, they ask somebody to testify. So in the case of Anne DeLisle, so far, I guess she's maybe scheduled to return and continue to testify. She was telling people this is what happened. Now that's limited to your own knowledge. What do you know? There a lot of times the defense attorney was kind of varying into, I had heard this or this was out there. I don't have the access to his witness list, so to find out who he might call to lay down facts for him. But those facts are, of course, subject to cross-examination as well.
Let me ask you, Matt, since you're the attorney here, as far as timing goes, they have one more date of testimony. That's tomorrow, which may or may not go all day. Today, the case...
It's actually only a partial day. They've only got from 9 a.m. to 1 tomorrow. So
they got 4 hours to get through every other witness, which, I mean, I don't think there's much more they have to really cover in terms of their arguments, but but as fact witnesses, they're going to probably get some people in, and I don't know if you get, and I'll direct it to the whole panel, if you guys have any thoughts of who else might be testifying tomorrow as to, like, I think one of the issues that came up was that they made a big stink about the fact that Anne DeLisle's minutes have not been officially approved by the party. So they're going to need somebody to authenticate the minutes and to corroborate that. How much time do you think they're going to be spending on this stuff tomorrow?
Well, that was a point where I thought that that's a normal order of business is to approve minutes. So I can't recall because it's been a few weeks, but I'm pretty sure we have approved those minutes.
Yeah, normally you approve minutes, under Robert's rules, you approve the minutes at the next meeting, right? It's your first order of business after you do your prayer and, pledge and all of that, right? Is you approve the minutes from the last meeting. So there was a lot of question about whether or not, those minutes were draft, whether it was hearsay. I was at the January 6th meeting and the January 20th meeting, and I'm fairly certain that the January 6th meeting minutes were, and Matt, Holly, I mean, you guys are on the state committee, but I'm fairly confident that those were, those were approved at the January 20th meeting.
Right, and remember, there's two different standards here, right? So when you have minutes, that's a description of what happened at the last meeting, okay? And minutes form their own something called business record exemption to hearsay. Normally, you can't take a document and say, we're taking it for the truth of the matter presented. But in this case, you don't need hearsay because you have Anne. And DeLisle is up there saying, I was at the meeting, I saw this, I listened to this, we conducted this vote, and these were the results. So that's a complete... this guy has a big old plate of red herrings, right? He has a bunch of things he's thrown up against the wall that it doesn't matter. And that's one of them, because she's there giving the personal testimony. Is his implication that if Kristina was voted out on the 6th and they were in court on the 7th, the court could say nothing until the following meeting? No, that's not how it works. So that's just a confirmation to convert that into a business record that could stand by itself. But because Anne is there, and presumably other people as well, also testifying as to what they saw and heard and did, it's a giant red herring.
By the way, on YouTube, Juan Tuno says, please post the link to the court live stream. Thank you. I would if I could, Juan. We don't have one. There wasn't one. There is a YouTube channel for the court, but apparently it wasn't working or something. There was no live stream. So as much as I would have loved to have been able to live stream the hearing, but it was just not possible.
Yeah, they said
Randy
it
Guppy.
was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Adam.
Well, I was gonna show Randy Guppy's comment, and maybe Mindy, if you want to comment on that, because I wasn't in the courtroom, but yeah, how was Cross with Annie?
Oh, I'm proud of her. She did such a good job. She was very calm and collected, and she did not waver. You know, she was being tortured by the defense, or the defense, right? So she didn't bat an eye. She did very good.
Excellent. She was probably prepped for that. I would imagine that's what that kind of comes with the territory. But that's how cross-examination works. Is your job is to impeach the witness's credibility. And I have no doubt in my mind that they had no ability to do that with the Roberts Rules expert, but with Anne DeLisle.
Oh, they tried.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they tried. I'm sure it was a very half-hearted attempt, because I mean, yeah, from what I heard, the guy was very, I mean, he was what you'd expect for a guy who was the co-author of Robert's Rules of Order 12th edition. He was very bookish, very, very detail-oriented.
Well, and you remember, Adam, in the previous matter, I think this was in the Kalamazoo. Yeah, Randy, many of us, exactly. In the Kalamazoo matter, they did have an expert in their trial, and it was Dave DeShaw. And Dave's got a good background and is very knowledgeable and was admitted as an expert in that case. But he didn't write the book. This guy wrote the book.
Right.
So he's talking about
Dave DeShaw.
Yeah, he's great. They're awesome. They're great dudes. They're very, very knowledgeable. And it's not that complicated, okay? There's nuances of it that are in there, and he understands all of them. But the basics of this were, and as it was relayed to me, was the expert testimony was basically a dismantling of all the talking points that many of your listeners have heard from Kristina's side about this mattered and this didn't happen and that mattered and that, and they just took them apart one at a time, but each one of them through the paper shredder, and it was as it was relayed to me, it was a pretty good day for the plaintiffs.
Yeah, and you're spot on, Matt. Right. So, Annie DeLisle, I will second what Mindy said. She was just fantastic on the stand. And really her whole testimony was just a recount of the January 6th and the January 20th meeting, right? When was notice sent? What is this email? Who sent it? But all of the facts that, we've all been through, Adam, you've covered on your show numerous times with Matt and others. But when we get into, Thomas's expert witness testimony, really, they came really well prepared. It was really a step-by-step breakdown of the bogus policy committee report that Kristina's people put out. They had a whole slide presentation. I mean, Thomas got up and was presenting. Mindy's laughing because there were slides.
Oh man.
And I think Jonathan Ousting actually pointed out at one point they wheeled out a whiteboard for Thomas to show the judge how math works in parliamentary, procedures when you're talking about, simple majority, super majority.
There's a tweet.
Yeah.
And I think one of the best parts was the parliamentarian or the expert witness totally debunked their the policy they wanted to policy amendment or that referenced WikiLeaks.
Oh, so in the policy subcommittee report, they and I don't know if you have that readily accessible or not, Adam, but they talk about the definition of a call to meeting, and Kristina's policy subcommittee, they actually cite Wikipedia for the definition of a call to meting, and Thomas Balch
they came up too.
Yeah, he says, this is. He goes, I'm glad to see that they, know how to use Wikipedia, but unfortunately, the Michigan Republican Party adopted Robert's Rules of Order as their parliamentary authority, not Wikipedia.
Yeah.
In the world.
Adam, it goes back to a pattern that these guys have had, which is they make a quasi-legal determination with the one barely functional lawyer they have on staff and the two disbarred or never been barred attorneys they have. And then they trot it out. And as soon as it reaches one of the, I don't know, what were there, a half a dozen attorneys at the January 6th meeting? We all look at it and go, what? What? That doesn't make any sense. So their argument was the policy committee can say 1 is 2. And therefore 1 is always 2 now. And they've done this over and over and over again. They did it on January 13th. We're going to suspend the bylaws. What? Really?
Yeah.
Now, and from my perspective, who told you that's okay?
Right.
Like 2 people that would have told you that's okay, and they're both have no business saying anything to anybody.
That's right.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of Wikipedia, you know, one of my recent videos they're now getting these content notifications from YouTube. So those of you watching on YouTube, you might want to subscribe and bookmark my channel on Rumble and X and even Facebook, because YouTube, man, they're snippy lately. They just tagged my show the other night, and with some informative information about the Great Replacement theory that we talked about on Sunday's show. With just so you guys know, according to Wikipedia, the Great Replacement theory is a white supremacist, right-wing extremist theory, not something the Democrat consultants came up with. No.
Of course not.
Wikipedia, whatever they say is it's good as the gospel. It's better than any other encyclopedia, especially on current events. Wikipedia, that's where you go for all of your impartial analysis of current events. It's Wikipedia.
So if you go to Wikipedia, who's listed as the MRP chair?
Last time I looked, it was actually listed as last time it was listed as vacant. But let's see. Now that you mention it, let's see here. Wiki.
So if they're relying on Wikipedia, what does Wikipedia say about our leadership?
And now they've shifted over to and as a lawyer, these things drive you nuts. It's now
look at that. The chair,
survey said
Wikipedia,
so weird.
the chairperson. Imagine that.
Wow.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, not that I would rely on Wikipedia, just saying that's what they happen to say about this. So there you go.
Well, I think the RNC actually finally came out and put Pete's picture up on their website today too, right? Which that was a talking point for Kristina's people for the longest time of, look at there's still Kristina's still listed on the RNC website. Well, now it's completely official. Pete's name's there and his photo. So
it's amazing.
No disputing.
All you can do is shake your head, because this group here has watched the goalpost move, I think now 5 times.
At least.
Yeah. In the latest meeting, I guess she had, this was at a meeting I heard last night. Adam, one of your former guests, Scott McMahon, was speaking to a group, and Scott said in their meeting that they just had, she was asked specifically, if the court rules that you are not the chair, will you turn it in? And he described it as, I think, 5 minutes of a word salad that the only thing I conclude she was saying was no.
Yeah.
So we went from listen to the RNC, nope, change our mind. Listen to Donald Trump, nope, change our mind. Listen to the courts, nope. And and now I guess they're. I remember
when Trump put out his written endorsement, someone came to me and said that doesn't count because I don't believe he really wrote that. And it was his handlers that wrote that, and they're the ones that, and then of course Trump does the rally the other day and completely endorses.
Sealed the deal.
Yeah, completely. By the way,
so
folks,
Matt,
we have a new video from Ken Byer, who's going to talk about that coming up later on this program here. But going back to what you were talking about with this Detroit convention. Now, as I understand it, this hearing that we just had today, and we'll finish tomorrow, is for a temporary restraining order that, if adopted by if signed off on by the judge, will prohibit Kristina Karamo from pretending to be the chair anymore. and anyone else in her orbit. So, I mean, she'd be in contempt of court, but will that stop her? I mean,
Well,
realistically,
it depends on what relief the judge enters, right? So the request is it's for a preliminary injunction, which is a step before a permanent injunction.
Mm-hmm.
And the judge, because it's a matter of equity, not of law, the judge can pick and choose from a lot of different things. The judge can say, you're prohibited from doing this, but you can keep doing that. It is unlikely that any judge will tell someone they cannot meet. That would violate the First Amendment. So they can, this group of people can always, any group of people can always meet whenever they want. Can they hold themselves out as being the head of the Michigan Republican Party? That remains to be seen. And then the details about running it, that the judge can, again, pick and choose what they want, and when the judge crafts an order.
Right. So they might have some kind of meeting in Huntington Place, although how they paid for that meeting is beyond me, but maybe they have, so who knows. On YouTube, KLS and C85 says, I'm not a big fan of Pete Hoekstra. Same here, but I do hope he will do a better job. Then again, now the bar just isn't that high, sadly. Exactly. Divergent K on YouTube says, will Hoekstra be able to continue as chair? Looks that way. It certainly looks that way, I must say, because, well, I mean, we'll see. The RNC has recognized Hoekstra as chair. And the court, they might not issue a preliminary injunction, temporary restraining order, but that does not mean that they do the opposite extreme, which seems very, very, very far from likely here, to prohibit him from, acting as chair.
Adam, you raise a. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Nick. I was going to
you raise an interesting point, and it is, there seems to be a lot of delegates that are, waiting on the outcome of this court case to determine what convention they're going to go to. And I think we should talk about that for a couple minutes because, the RNC has already came out and officially recognized Pete. So, to me, this lawsuit is about returning the party assets and forcing Kristina to stop falsely representing herself as the chair, right? If you want to make sure that your vote is represented, that we're properly represented at the RNC, the way to do that is to attend the Grand Rapids convention. You shouldn't be waiting for the outcome of this court case to determine what convention you're going to go to.
Well, I have no objection if any of Karamo's supporters want to go to her convention in Detroit personally.
Sure.
They're welcome to go.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, you raise a completely valid point, which is that everything at this convention is supposed to be for the purposes of the national convention, electing our national delegates, electing the national committee man, national committee woman, and presidential preference. Everything that goes to the RNC, who hold all the cards and what they choose to see.
Right.
But on the other hand, Kristina Karamo's people have their own ideas about what they want to do at their state convention, and this has actually come up in a brand new article from Scott McMahon. Let me pull this up so I have it on the screen here. This is, hold on, what's my screen not shared? Oh, here we go. This is from Scott McMahon, biggertruthmedia.com, and he has made a new video and a link to where he talks about what their plan is for the state convention or the district conventions, which they apparently are going to tack on a state convention. And this is, let's see, does he cite it here? Let me see here. Let's tell you what, there's another brand new piece of material we have too, and that's from Ken Byer, who was one of Kristina's lieutenants. And yeah, they've been talking about for a long time adding things on to their district convention. We saw a video from Ken Byer recently where he said, here's the things we're going to do at the state convention. They're all things that were never in the call of the convention. Having a referendum on who the chair is, passing a resolution to end Republican primary elections, and then to pass some kind of constitution change to the state party, which is what this document appears to be. So let me switch over to this. This was actually adopted by the Allegan County GOP at their county convention, which is where Ken Byer's from. And there's this resolution to hold Republican Party candidates and representatives accountable. And there's this whereas stuff. And then be it resolved that anyone representing the party shall represent and promote the principles of the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and tenets, which are, by the way, they can list them off here, but they're still actually pretty vague. They're still vague. I mean, when you have, for example, warrantless mass surveillance, is that constitutional or is it not? That's what the courts are fighting about right now and doing the wrong thing, of course. Yeah. KLSNC says, I vote against the resolution. I lost. Be it resolved, the delegates of the Allegan County Republican Party hereby commission the executive committee to investigate any party candidate or representative, elected or otherwise, who demonstrates flagrant and pervasive disregard for the tenets of the U.S. Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and Republican Party platform. Be it resolved, if found guilty. I mean, this is the language of a lynch mob, folks. If found guilty by a 2/3 vote of the executive committee of flagrant and pervasive disregard of these principles, the delegates of the county party commission the blank executive committee to present reports of malfeasance to the public regarding any candidate or elected representatives, or to reject and demand removal and replacement of the election inspector, poll challenger, poll watcher, or any other partisan role processing an election. And that source link there is that not to where this was adopted by the Allegan County GOP. The source is to the Republican Party platform, which is apparently their Bible. But not really. I mean, this is an argument for mob rule, for punishing heretics, for outing witches. This is lunacy. And this is not the big tent Republican Party, which I understand, folks. There is a rhino problem in the GOP, always has been, but this is way going beyond what that it could possibly be. As
Scott pointed out yesterday when he spoke. Yeah. If these strategies sound familiar, they should. This is Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals. We are going to set up a small group. We're going to isolate and demonize people, and they use those terms: demonic, satanic, evil, right? And then you're gonna kick them out, and that's their strategy. And to think that somehow 2/3 of an executive committee can Jason, you're right. To think that 2/3 of an executive committee are somehow experts on the Republican Party platform and what it means to be a Republican, especially in places where Republicans have a broad set of views, is absolutely preposterous.
Yeah, and it's I just realized, because I saw John Rocha in the chat here, and I realized I meant to invite him on the show. John, I just emailed you the link to the stream, so you're welcome to come on and join us, buddy. But also because I think he was in the courtroom too as well. But anyway, there's yet another article that they passed. This is Allegan County's GOP, and this tells you what their plans were for and still are probably for the March convention. Whereas the Republican Party is a private organization, specifically a nonprofit. I think the IRS might dispute that. The Republican Party has the right to select its own representation and leadership without outside interference, and the law requires primary elections to be voted on by the qualified registered electors of the party. But whereas there are currently no qualified and registered electors of the party in Michigan due to our open primary process and lack of partisan voter registration, this is all a very bizarre legal theory that these guys are pushing forward. And she says there were 3 resolutions voted on the caucus. I only have the 2, KLS, and see if you've got a third, send it to me, please. I'd like to know. Nicole Sable says this is so Beyer can go after Huizenga. He's already said he'd rather have a Democrat than Huizenga in office. What a surprise. Anyway, this resolution goes on. And let's go to the be it resolved. The delegates of our county endorse a yes vote at the March convention to affirm the change in primary elections for the Republican Party in Michigan to delegate caucuses to be held prior to the August public primary vote in Michigan for county, state, and federal level positions. Weird. I don't remember seeing any call to convention that involved there being an affirmation of a change in primary elections, one that would have delegate caucuses decide who is not allowed to be a Republican candidate for office. And then also be it resolved, the delegates of the county endorse a yes vote at the March 2nd convention to affirm the motion to hold candidates, elected officials, and election workers accountable to the election workers. how is that enforceable on the clerks that hire them? The election workers hold them accountable to the U.S. Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and the Republican Party platform. What motion? It's weird. This motion is not stated. What motion? There's a missing reference here. What motion to hold candidates, elected officials, and election workers accountable are they talking about? Does anybody know? No, MS says Ottawa County passed the same stuff too.
Well, let me just, for the broader audience, Adam.
Yes.
If I may, and we've talked about this, and I hope people remember. So, short version, you can't do this. Longer version, they make reference to Section 168 of Michigan compiled laws, which is the Michigan election code. There's broader at 168. It's got a whole bunch of sections. And in a lot of those sections, there's 600 references in Act 116 of 1954, which is the Michigan election law, to the word primary. If the Michigan law says our senators will be chosen for each party in a primary, the Michigan Republican Party does not get to change that by passing a resolution. Now, any good lawyer, and I'm not calling myself a good lawyer compared to people that testified today, like that guy's really good. Any good lawyer would say, can you do that? Do you think you can do that? Because you can't. Unfortunately, the people, as we've talked about running the show, are the good lawyers. I guess I'll answer that in the negative.
Yeah, on YouTube, Chris Leap says, I heard I knew things were going south when the Wayne County chair, I'm not sure what that's in reference to.
If I may.
Go ahead.
There is no Wayne County. The person you're talking to is not a Wayne County chair. She is the chair of a Wayne County club, and she walks around town pretending she has authority. She does not have. She's done that for a long time. There are 3 Wayne County chairs. They are Cheryl Constantino in the 13th, Paula Ganacki in the 12th, and Patty Pozios, our frequent guest, in the 6th. The person you're probably talking about is none of those. If you want to ask her if she's the chair, ask her where her convention was. The answer is she didn't have one.
Yep. But that's what they're doing, though. They're demanding that you affirm your support for Karamo. Otherwise, they're going to target you, because they target everybody. In fact, they are even now. In fact, I meant to talk about this earlier. They are now actually targeting the judge in this case, if you guys can believe that. But let me show you, because it is. Well, I'll show you the tweets. Here we go. Let me.
These people have no moral compass.
No, they don't. They were going after the lawyers. Now they're going after the judge. Let's see how that goes for them. So these are some posts on the Unshackled and Mitten Telegram channel. You can see there's the link there if you want to subscribe to them, and forward me their posts in case my other sources stop, which they won't. Is Judge Rossi caught in the donor's web of influence? Who does Judge Joseph Rossi answer to? God or the billionaires implicated in the Seymour Street lawsuit who contributed heavily to this campaign in 2016 and want to eliminate Karamo? And so here is Carrie Lynn, whoever that is, saying, I just called the Judicial Commission. I'm sure they were happy to take your call. and they stated they are for disciplinary action in cases where a judge didn't recuse themselves and should have, which means I think everyone should still call both numbers, because we've had a plethora of people reaching out, and they will know it very well if it comes before them. Call this number and ask, when is Judge Joseph Rossi in the 17th Circuit Court going to recuse himself in the Pago v. Karamo case? He has a serious conflict of interest. Actually, there's more here. You know what? Hold on. There's some. I was going to say there's something I'm missing here. Yeah, this is their allegation. 10 members of the DeVos family, including Betsy DeVos, each donated $1,000 to Rossi. Betsy is a former MIGOP chair. How is that relevant? One of the MIGOP trustees, Seymour Street LLC, which is not a party of this lawsuit, implicated in the lawsuit brought by Karamo's administration for declaratory judgment regarding party assets. But that was the case in Ingham County. That doesn't apply. Including the old Weiser Sekia headquarters at 520 Seymour Street. 3 members of the Sekia family gave a combined $4,000 to Rossi. Ooh.
So there's a lot of people that don't understand when it comes to supporting candidates or anybody else like that with that kind of money. Look, I'm going to be completely transparent. C.J. Richard has supported me in my congressional race with money. Cody and Sowers has supported my race with money. Sabrina Pritchett has supported me in my run. So am I now all of a sudden tied somehow to this crazy Kristina? Is this how it all works? Because if you want to, it's there. Everybody can look that up. But $1,000 is not buying anybody. So these guys are just absolutely just bloviating. It's ridiculous.
You took money from Sabrina Pritchett Evans, John, you monster.
Yeah, well, even the Democrats support me, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you could have returned the money, but why would you? This is the trick they pulled on Ron Paul's in his campaigns was they'd have someone give money to him who was a Nazi, and then they'd say, why don't you return the money? And Ron's like, I'm not going to give a Nazi his money back. That's his answer to those. Anyway, so yeah, there they go. Urgent call to action. Call this number and also call that number. Call the I don't know which number is which. This is the Judicial Commission. The other one too.
Yeah, that's great. And make sure you leave your name and number, so when the judge investigates for interfering with the proceedings of a court, they know exactly who to call back.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but this is people's MO.
These people are playing with fire because this judge can say, I think you're trying to interfere with a judicial proceeding. And I'm going to hold testimony on my own. And I'm going to call the following people: Mike Labadie, Robert Owens. I'm going to call them on my own, under my own authority, which he has, and drag them into court. And there's no defense to it. And oh, by the way, you don't show up, I'm going to hold you in contempt. Oh, by the way, you lie in court, we're going to find you guilty of perjury. So but these people don't have any. There's no sense behind this stuff. So, yeah, don't ever do that. For people with word to the wise, don't do that.
Yeah, messing with the judge is not usually a good idea. Just saying.
Hey, so I'm just curious, Matt, what would be considered a reasonable conflict of interest for a judge? So like $1,000 donation 7 years ago, that wouldn't be considered?
No. Let me give you an example. So that issue has actually been litigated all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And it was a case in Virginia where a person who was, I think, had like a financial interest in a case before the West Virginia Supreme Court was put on the Supreme Court for West Virginia, small state, right? It was in the millions of dollars. I believe the court really said it's not really about the money. It's about, are you judging cases about yourself? And remember, this one went all the way to the United States Supreme Court because there were differing opinions. It wasn't a close case. The number of times where a judge is actually recused is relatively small, and it's at the judge's discretion, right? So if this particular judge was a party to the case, then maybe, or had a financial interest in the case, but just being a member of a party. Remember, I'm here in Wayne County, all the judges are Democrats. And I think when one of the election cases came in, they said all the judges have to be recused because they're all Democrats. And not only did they throw that out of court, I think they fined the person who made that filing. So it's much closer to, do you have an interest in it? Do you have financial interest? If not, the fact that you occasionally, are on that side, that's not grounds for removal. No chance.
Jason on Facebook says the email Judge Bell in Kalamazoo for our stuff, a family member of one of them. I don't know exactly what that means, for our stuff, but feel free to elaborate, Jason. And then he also says, hope the email Judge Rossi also. Look, his voices need to be heard. Yeah. Doug Seidenquist says judges are as corrupt as the police. They judge shopped. Well, the problem, Doug, is that there's multiple judges in any given courtroom or any given courthouse, and it's kind of random which one you actually get. The other problem is, the reason why this is problem in Kent County is because Kristina put her P.O. box in Kent County. Otherwise, they'd be stuck in Ingham County, which might be more inclined to side with Kristina. I'm sorry, Matt, you're going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to ask Nick, how many judges do you have in Kent County? Is it 30?
That's a great question. I don't know.
It's a big number. It's probably the 17th Circuit Court probably has 30 judges.
Yeah, so and how many of them have received donations from someone connected to the DeVos family?
Probably.
Yeah, exactly.
If they're Republican in Kent County, I can guarantee you they've gotten money from the DeVos family.
When the name's on the building, right? But that's
Exactly.
not Holly, to your point, that's not the standard.
Yeah. Stephanie Butler says, you know how hard it is to get a judge who is actually corrupt in trouble? Hello, has anyone had to go to in front of a judge in Wayne County? They are all legitimately corrupt and you can't touch them. Well, Stephanie, that may be so, but well, it may be so for a lot of judges. Doesn't mean it's true for this judge in this case. The question is going to be, what are the facts? How does the law apply to it? And all that we see in this case is basically they're reading the bylaws and saying, here's what the bylaws say. Was this right or wrong? Yes or no? I mean, it's that simple.
I think what she's getting at is that the bar for removal is a lot higher.
I see.
I used to know the head of the Judicial Tenure Commission, and he had a saying. He said, you can't remove a judge for being an idiot. And remember, we had a case in, I think it was in Inkster, where a district court judge, just everything was overturned. People were jailed for no reason. It was ridiculous, and they couldn't remove her. And when they did ultimately finally remove her for some other miscreants, what happened a year later? She was voted back on.
I personally just want to say that I think we all are in agreement, and we should thank Kristina Karamo's lawyers for bringing up the fact that Wikipedia is the authority of all legal substances here. I had no idea until today, so I'm thankful for that because I didn't know that little piece. So God bless them for bringing that little piece up for us.
Yep. By the way, KLS&C says he's got the other resolution scan. Tell you what, I certainly can just give my email live on stream. The best thing to do would be go to biggertruthmedia.com and you'll find Scott McMahon's contact info. Send it to him. He'll add it to his article, I'll bet. This third resolution.
Well, and I think what's important is that they may not be able to get this judge removed.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, go ahead, Holly.
But the concern for me is that they're putting that call out to people, that call to action to say, hey, call and do all this, put your name, put your phone number out there, spend your own personal time doing this. But also because they're trying to give that impression in just the court of public opinion, that regardless of what comes down,
judge. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I think it's important for us to just make sure that that reasonable people out there understand that is not a reasonable expectation for a judge to recuse himself because he received a little bit of money, 7 years ago in a campaign. So, that's the issue. Obviously, I don't think we need to worry about the judge being removed, but we do need to worry about what that's going to mean when we hope that things get settled through this court.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see tomorrow, but I think, and I'd like to ask the whole panel what your predictions are. I'm inclined to think that the judge is inclined to issue a restraining order against Kristina because everything happened today. The judge ruled there was challenges to the admissibility of evidence. The judge ignored pretty much all of the defense's objections.
Yeah, I think there was out of all of the objections, which I think there was quite a bit of the meeting minutes and things that Campbell was.
Hey, Nick, I don't know if it's you or me, but I'm getting a lot of clicks and cut-offs.
Yeah.
You have others nodding, so there's something wrong with your audio for a moment there. It might come back on.
Is that better?
But go ahead. Oh, yeah, that's better. Yes.
Okay. So, there was quite a bit of objections raised by Campbell on anything from the evidence to the witness. He didn't want Thomas Balch to testify. And I think we realized later that was because he hadn't even bought a copy of Robert's Rules and had it in front of him, at his counsel table to be able to reference or question anything on Robert's Rules. But I think out of all of the objections that were issued, and there was quite a bit, I count at least 10 or 12, there was only one of them that the judge sustained. They were all overruled. And there was definitely, like Mindy said, there was a feeling of annoyance by the judge. When I left there, it felt like things were shifting. And I think Kristina's team held their hat high on the fact that it was going to get dismissed yesterday because of Hype Manus. I don't think that they really did as much due diligence as they should have done preparing themselves to go into court They were expecting, Hartman has said, and Kristina's paraded around for the last 6-8 weeks that this is an inter-party dispute and the judge has no jurisdiction over it. So I think we saw that play out in the court today.
Yeah. Dan Lawless on Facebook says they're never wrong. They're just victims of a conspiracy that involves literally everyone who disagrees with them. Yeah, that's basically the narrative. Speaking of that, Doug Seidenquist says Weiser always wins. Bank on it. What does Weiser have to do with this? Weiser's retired. Weiser's done with the party. Weiser's gone. Weiser, when Weiser was nearly booed off the stage in 2022, he was like, "I'm out of here." That was the end of Ron Weiser's role in the GOP. Pretty sure.
I mean, the other thing, Adam, is Kristina was on a radio show yesterday morning saying exactly what Nick just mentioned. The court doesn't get to decide. Well,
yeah,
tell the
court that.
Agree with you, but it doesn't stop. The goalposts are going to move, and you see them moving. Now you're going to hear corrupt judge. I remember her saying in a hearing, this was as you know, they've got lots of litigation. There it was about the money that she owes to Hillsdale County, and she said, "Well, of course we're going to appeal it." And I said, "You can't. You've passed the time period by a lot." And what turns out, guess what? They can't appeal it because guess what? The time period is passed by a lot. Just because you say
also,
something.
as we learned all too painfully, isn't there an appeal bond? You have to pay the money before you can get to appeal anyway.
Yeah, if you want collections actions to stop, yes. But in this case,
although
money
that goes to, I think, what people in the chat are saying, and to Holly's point, which is that they're gonna piggyback on the narrative. Trump can get no justice in the courts, neither can we, because the whole system's completely corrupt.
Absolutely.
It's like, well, yeah, but that's New York, and that's, by the way, also why these left-wing activist judges in New York and elsewhere are so fundamentally dangerous, is that they're destroying the whole public's confidence in the legal system as a whole. But that does not mean the facts in this case have any resemblance to the facts in any other case, least of all, the Trump case. But that's the narrative they're going to go with. The media, if the media says I'm bad, therefore I'm good. The courts say I'm wrong, therefore I'm right. That's the binary thinking that they have gotten this cult locked into. And they're going to play. They're going to play.
2 of our 3 legal advisors have had not very much success in front of actual courts, and that would be Robert Owens and Mr. JD LLM Jim Coppice.
Ray Ann Fortin asks, for those of you that were in the courtroom today, what was the reaction of the KK people in the courtroom? Were there?
There was. I'd say 4 or 5, I think, sitting in the front row. A lot of nodding, a lot of agreeing with their side. I don't know. Nick, what did you see?
Well, it was interesting, having been at the January 6th and the January 20th meeting. One of the Kristina loyalists that is on state committee was there, and she was actually talking out in the hallway, trying to accuse Anne DeLisle of lying on the stand when she gave her testimony and convincing Campbell that she had lied. And it was around facts of the January 6th and January 20th meetings. And I'm like, she wasn't at those meetings. How would she know whether Annie was lying or not? There wasn't a part of Annie's testimony at all that was that I think could even be called into question. Based on my experience from having been there, and I just think it's discredit wherever they can, right? But they definitely, when they left, they seemed a little somber. I mean, I think they could feel the temperature of the room and feel the temperature of the judge. And if I was on that side, I wouldn't be feeling like the winds were shifting in my direction at all.
But what's funny is they think they're winning.
Yeah.
So
I think they're so far deep into this that they're sitting in that courtroom thinking, oh my gosh, this isn't going our way. But then when they leave and they start getting their people telling them all these reasons for why it's okay and why it's going to work out and how they're going to manipulate the situation, they start to, I mean, they're inclined to want to believe it because there's so much on the line. Their reputations, they've ended friendships over this. I mean, they can't afford for this to not succeed. So they're apt to believe whatever any of these handlers, any of these people behind the scenes tell them.
It's a cult.
Yeah,
the bottom line is it's a cult, period.
Yeah, I got a funny email from someone today that was addressed to some unknown Republican recipients, that is from some guy who his address is in Houston, Texas, saying, "Dear Republican friends, Judge Rossi in Grand Rapids has decided to listen to evidence from Kristina Karamo's lawyers today," in the plural, really, and tomorrow, "and the result does not look good for Pete or Melinda Pago, based on the evidence being offered under oath by both the elected secretary and the elected treasurer." What? "The judge is likely to rule that the call for the meeting made by Pago/Hoekstra faction had an insufficient number of signatures, and thus the January 6th meeting was nothing. There's a secondary problem that came up yesterday, which is that the judge may be reversed on appeal of his decision to get involved at all, because federal law makes clear he has no authority to enter this dispute." This is all complete legal gibberish, obviously. Matt, if you want to break that down, you're welcome to, but I think it's pretty.
He just asked to break down they took a Scrabble board and just chucked it in the air and say what words were the what? The federal court doesn't have. I'm sorry, I don't follow, because it's actually, it was an interesting comment, because in the hearing that was on today's Wednesday, so Tuesday, the judge yesterday dismantled the whole Hytmanis thing and said,
one of the things he said was, "There's a federal case, doesn't apply to my court. I'm not bound by it."
And he laid. The funny thing is as a lawyer listening to it, and I don't practice in civil procedure. Lots of guys who do it sharper than me. He sounded like a really, really frustrated civil procedure professor. Well, you see, federal courts are courts of limited jurisdiction. They can only take on certain matters as set forth in federal statute and the United States Constitution. State courts are courts of general jurisdiction. We can take on anything. Hytmanis was in a federal court. We're a state court. And it was like just, but this is the kind of stuff you get. It's stuff written by amateur half lawyers, and they traipse it around and they call it a win. I mean, I think there was a matter last week where the court delayed the hearing for the week, and one of the clown show sent out an email calling it a great legal victory. A delay of a hearing is a great legal victory? I mean, it's nonstop. It's nonstop.
It's amazing. Yeah, I could go on with reading this, but basically, I mean, it's just complete projection. And based on what I've seen, Kristina Karamo was in the right, and yada, yada, yada. Let's hope these people trying to divide our party don't succeed. And let's hope Judge Rossi decides this tomorrow and it doesn't go to an appeals court. Well, yeah, we'll see. Signed, Joe, part-time Michigander, full-time Republican. Give me a break. But yeah, I mean, this is cheap PR tactics, and I don't think they're going to impress anybody at all. I got another text today. I posted this on Twitter just because I think it gives you some kind of insight into the mindset of some of these cult people. Hold on, let me pull this up here real quick.
Yeah, don't forget, Adam, you still have Ken's new video to show too.
I will. Okay, that'll be the next thing, and then I think we can probably call it a stream, because for everything else, guys, look, we'll know the results tomorrow. There's going to be a decision tomorrow.
Well,
I mean, we will, but they're not going to walk away.
Not necessarily. The judge can take everything under advisement, because this is testimony. This is court testimony. So generally, what you do is you take a couple of days of court testimony, and then you ask whether you want argument or closing on the briefs itself, which they may want, they may not. I mean, John Lauterbach finished today and said nothing further, Your Honor, because he saw how poorly it went. Yeah, so it was, but it doesn't necessarily mean the judge is going to rule right away. This judge sounded like he wanted to. Mary, I can talk about appeals in a second. This judge sounded like he wanted to read what appeared to be at least a partially written opinion from the bench, and then modify that opinion before issuance. and with the question of appeals court, generally the finding for a preliminary injunction is not a final order of the court. Preliminary or intermediary orders of the court are only subject to appeal based on leave from that court given. So if the judge says, I have heard enough evidence, but not all the evidence, I rule in favor of the plaintiffs, and I'm going to enjoin this pending further hearing, that's not an appealable order. So
yeah. Real quick, Cindy Holland makes the point. This was, and I've heard this too, that last Saturday, the fake state committee at an illegal meeting made a vote to appropriate the money they got from the NRCC for federal campaign spending to give it to Kristina Karamo for pay, and whatever else they're going to do with the rest of the money. But the question is, first off, is there? What do you think, Matt? The likelihood is that there's going to be a decision about locking Kristina out of the bank account. Number one, and then what do you think the possibilities are for clawing back the money that they're apparently illegally authorizing her to take?
Two parts to that. Number one, it is one of the first things you ask for is freeze the checkbook. And whether the judge grants that or not, I don't know. It could be part of broader relief. It could be a narrow individual request. I don't know what Mr. Lauterbach has asked for. It's one of the, generally, when you have sort of this kind of dispute, it's one of the first things you ask for. As far as a clawback, looking for preferential transfers throughout everything. That's money that has been spent. In this case, there's two really parts to it. One is money that was given to an insider. Insiders are police people like Kristina, Jim Coppas's wife. Those are insiders. Whoever they bought some of their stuff from. But the other one is going to be if and when books are transferred over, there's going to be demands sent out saying, hey, this is what we want you. We want you to give us the money back, because none of this, as to my understanding, and Holly or Nick or Mindy, I think, or maybe even John, you guys are on state committee. Did the finance committee approve any of this stuff? I thought the answer to that was no.
So, well, Mindy, you could probably attest to it. The only thing that I know that that was approved was a sham of a $7 million wish list for budget. And literally, hey, we got $7 million and this is what we want to do. And under that guise of that $7 million budget, Kristina says she's been vested the authority to use the money however she deems fit, however it is within the $7 million. So it's like, yeah, that's pretty much what she said. She's, well, you guys approved $7 million for me to do whatever I want. So I'm in my proper authority to do whatever I want. And you can't say otherwise. That's pretty much it.
Well, and that was last summer, right, John?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like an umbrella covers. She's just going to cover everything.
Good luck with that argument, because that argument will end up back in court. Probably if the judge in this case granted the preliminary injunction, they would amend their request for relief and say, we went through the books and records and we found that this wasn't authorized, and you cut these checks. It's not uncommon. Happens all the time, right? Two business partners are disputing. Mm-hmm. One guy wants to fire the other guy. The other guy looks in his pocket. He sees a bunch of checks that he brought, and he writes a bunch of checks out and says, I had the authority to do so. So it's not uncommon. It's also unlawful.
Yeah, by the way, this is on the screen what they asked for in their injunction. So these are all the things that Kristina would be prohibited from doing. So, yep, bank account is number 3. So there you go. Also on in the chats, Donna Patrick says MSNBC just did a segment about the Michigan GOP chit show. Let me read some Rumble chats real quick. CTM on 2023 says unshackle the mitten only refers to the mitten because the UP understands what freedom is and it isn't attached to unshackle. CTM also says just try to go to the link in the email from Karamo regarding the Detroit convention. Got a warning, your connection is not private. Attackers might be trying to steal your information, question mark. Well, that could be that sometimes websites act up. I don't know. Hurl Bags on Rumble says that attitude seems to be a common thread with KK supporters that I have conversations with. Anytime they are presented with any fact, they always dismiss it. And that goes to, this is an actual text thread I had today with someone who just emailed me or texted me out of the blue. There was no setup to this. This is literally word for word exactly what it said. I'm not going to name the person, doesn't matter. but he just contacted me out of the blue. Just says, I noticed that the hoax omitted the statewide offices. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Because he's talking about the call to convention, not talking about the RNC members, because that wasn't the call to convention. You're talking about the offices for like Michigan Supreme Court, because that's not this convention. That's the one in August. So I wrote him back, what do you mean? So then he responds back, the statewide candidates will not be able to recover from the damage done to their campaigns. They cannot be in two places at the same time. Uniparty strikes Michigan down, which again also makes no sense whatsoever. So just kind of ribbing him a little bit. I say, indeed, Kristina should be held liable for the damages that she's done. He responds back, you know how silly that comment is? She does not have anything. So I wrote back, apparently she just looted the bank account of the party. Again, silly, he says. So I just wrote, in foretext me, you have made no sense. And then that was the last I heard from him. I mean,
so did you tell CJ hi for me then? Because that sounds like that's exactly.
No, that was not CJ. But the point being, yeah, I mean, it's just there's no the logical connection. Yeah, Jason says the exact same thing. This was not CJ. It was a completely different person. But the rational connection is just broken. It's entirely they're running on emotions. That's all there's to it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Even if we get something that goes our way tomorrow, we need to understand that doesn't mean that it's done. Doesn't mean that it's over for us. We need to figure out a way to move forward with people, and we need to be prepared for them to make things difficult.
Well, I think the thing is, once these conventions are over, I mean, there's nothing that's forcing us to engage them until the next cycle, other than obviously there's going to be some legal issues with the state party that Mike Bishop's going to have to sort through the council for the state party. But apart from that, I think the next thing is going to be just simply we got to out-recruit them for precinct delegates, because that's going to be their next stage of operation will be precinct delegates. And let's get more people in. Let's overthrow. That's going to be what their continuation will be.
Right. I mean, the only hope is, Adam, that at least in my area, there's been a lot of like serious negative enthusiasm. They want nothing to do with it. So you got to clean up the act first, and then you can attract more people. And God forbid you win an election or two. We have a very important election locally here in the 25th House. Yeah. If we can do that and demonstrate we can get something done, I think we can attract people. But these people aren't interested in that. They want to make the number of people smaller and smaller and smaller, so that they represent a huge portion of the people who are left. It's typical cult and, again, Saul Alinsky tactics, and they're executing them as they know how.
Yeah, Mary Moreland says she can run for chair next February.
Oh no!
I don't think that's a very likely concern, honestly. I think once the losses start to really accumulate, they're going to look for a new leader. I mean, that's just the way these operate.
I hope
Isn't she out for 5 years?
No, just through the end of the term.
Just at the end of the term. Okay.
Someone might raise that whole thing about conflicts of interest, right? If two Republicans get in an argument over something that one of them is a conflict of interest, if they're on the other side from Kristina. So no, only through the end of the term. But I think people need to remember, Kristina didn't win a majority in the first ballot. She won somewhere in the 30s, because a lot of people said, I don't know if she's going to be able to do what she needs to do. She talks a good game, but can she raise the money? And I think the answer very clear is she talks nonsense, and she definitely can't raise the money. As the last comment or two comments ago was, here's another example of a legal proclamation from somebody who cannot make one of those, advised by two people who can't and one person who shouldn't.
Yep. On Rumble, CTMI says counties are going to be dealing with this for months to come. It has split once unified productive counties. Well, yeah, but okay, I've got a productive county, GOP, and we're just going to ignore them for the rest of the year. That's what's going to happen with us, other than making sure we out-recruit them for the PDs. All right, let's get this stream done. So we're going to play this new Ken Byer video and laugh at it. It's 5 minutes long. I have to stop. I know. It makes you want to puke
in my mouth.
You got to show people what they're actually saying and doing.
Oh my Lord!
I've got the volume turned all the way up, but here we go. Here's the video.
You're probably asking yourself, what in the Sam hell's going on with the Republican Party? Great question. Last year, a
We just talked
red
about
wave
that.
of America First delegates invaded the Michigan Republican Party and seized control.
Notice the words they use: invaded and seized. It's always the Marxist vocabulary: invade, seize, overthrow.
And let's just look at the screenshot you have right there. How many of those people are no longer able to be actively involved with Kristina?
Yeah, you have Hassan and Ali, both co-chairs, and Rolla and Melinda have all turned their back on Kristina, as has Marion
1 year.
Sheridan. Yeah, in 1 year. Burnett Smith apparently thinks that sticking with the Kristina train is going to serve her well, but there you go. Yep, they invaded the party. That is what they have done. And anyway,
there's no money coming out of that train.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Now the establishment wants their party back. They're definitely not going along to get along in this one. The old Republican Guard is playing for keeps. They are desperately burning down the Republican Party to purge it of America First patriots. The donor class is unleashing weapons of mass.
You know, for the record, we've never purged any. I mean, first of all, I reject the label of the old guard establishment, but we've never sought to purge anybody. Nor has the establishment, for crying out loud.
Am I the only one who's seen this? Me and Adam? Are we the only two people who've seen this?
I've never seen this before, and I want to know, does Allegan County have more legalized drugs than we have here in Wayne? Because that's the only thing I could think of.
Well, yeah, wasn't that part of the Michigan Precinct First Leadership Agreement? Was like step one, purge the party of all rhinos?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Purge the party of all heretics.
Real quick, and I know this is probably unprofessional, but you'll never be able to unsee it again. But it looks like Ken Byers trying to take a big old crap, and he's constipated as hell. And every single time he shows up on the screen, you won't be able to unsee it again. So you're welcome for that. Go ahead and continue. Right. You're welcome.
All right.
The Green Project take out our chairwoman and those of us like God-fearing patriots who are fighting to save our country. Their weapons of mass deception leave us dazed and confused, impairing our judgment. They overwhelm us with lies and deception, so we can't think right. They keep us busy defending the truth.
Yeah, it's Trump's fault. Trump has been deceived by the.
So we don't have time to uncover their lies. Ever wonder why the old guard took their records with them when they lost? The obvious reason for them to not hand over the computers, emails, and bank records to Kristina and her team is because it was a great way to sabotage her from the start. Or is there a more sinister reason that leadership set the new chairwoman up to fail? The carpet bombings of weapons of mass deception started in force when the Michigan Republican Party's legal counsel hit the bullseye with a lawsuit on the Seymour Street building, the old MIGOP headquarters. This building is owned by Seymour Street LLC, a trust consisting of former MIGOP chairs, including the RNC chair, Ronna Romney McDaniel. You can't make this up.
Yeah, folks, it's all in the basement of the old headquarters building. That's why we didn't use the old headquarters building that we had available to us for free. They had their secret files in there, as if like all the state party's records are all like in they're all in file folders on ink and paper. They're not like on a database. Amazing. All right, so let's keep going. I mean, that's what their big theory is the reason why we don't have access to the building, even though they did have access to the building, is that there's all these dirty secrets in the basement. There's stolen children chained up in the basement of the building.
It's like, Joe Biden's classified documents just sitting in a garage,
Yeah, Lauren Turner, wouldn't the secret files been better get out of the basement, like, and put them someplace else if the grassroots really seized the party?
Is this some type of corruption pledge? This explains why Ronna apparently used her position with the RNC to collude with Warner, Northwest, and Judd to politically lynch Kristina Karamo so they could take over the state party and shut down the investigation into the MIGOP's castle on Seymour evidence. They're sure acting as if there's something to hide. In this recording on January 4th, the gift that keeps giving, Warren, the dealer carpenter, is attempting to persuade an MIGOP state committee member to sign a petition to remove Chair Karamo.
Ooh, what a terrible crime.
It's a nice suit, though.
Warren picked a really good one for that picture. I
Yeah,
think he went for free. That's good for him. Really solid.
Lauren says, "Don't laugh. Sabrina is seriously suggesting the trust was trafficking children and drugs through that building for weeks." Lawless, why'd you use a picture of Warren looking so sharp?
Meeting on 1/6 is our meeting. The meeting's Saturday. If I don't have the signature, then then we can't bring her vote to the floor. Because there's a buffet of reasons why you could vote this out, and you know it. And you know it. What I will say is this, and this is not a threat. This is a promise. This is a promise. People that stand on the wrong side of this, I will not let the public forget. Everybody will know that.
Good. I'll do the same. I mean, I'll forgive them, but I ain't forgetting that they said with Karamo, and like I said, they want to be a volunteer, fine, but they can't be put back in leadership positions, folks. These state committee members that are staying with Kristina Karamo at their own peril, I might add, are showing that they have terrible, terrible judgment.
Absolutely. That's exactly what he's saying. He's not threatening anyone. He's just saying, if you're going to commit to this, then we're going to make sure people know you committed to this, that your judgment is that flawed.
That's right.
Yeah. Jessica asks, how are they getting these private recordings? The person that was the recipient just forwarded it to them. He gave it to him. All right, let's keep going. We're halfway through this. Thank God.
Before you resign, will you at least sign a piece of paper and then resign? No one's going to know it's you.
Keep in mind, this was just days before the attempted coup on January 6th. What seemed like a simple political maneuver was in fact just the tip of the sea. It appears that Warren and the RNC chairwoman McDaniels colluded with attorneys from Warner, Norcross, and Judd, including Troy Cummings and Jonathan Lauterbach, along with a host of famous parliamentarians to orchestrate a political lynching campaign against Karamo.
We have
Definitely pooping.
Wait. You am I on the list of famous parliamentarians? Because if not, I'm going to send something. I demand to be on the list of famous parliamentarians. Damn it, I put the work in. All right.
Yeah. On Rumble, Logger Larry says you have to stop allowing them to use the term grassroots. They are pure astroturf. Logger Larry, the word is ass roots. That is what they are. And I've heard they love it when you call them that. The ass roots. Randy Guppy says, funny those people have a problem with Pete and the Patriot Act are recording phone conversations. Yeah, there's that too. And then also on Rumble, CATMI says, so did Rana tell Karamo she was the real chair, as Karamo states on video, or not? I'm going to say probably not.
No.
All right, let's power through this, guys.
an attorney from the RNC, Troy Cummings, John Lauterbach, two parliamentarians, Dave DeShaw, and another parliamentarian from the RNC, and then also a parliamentarian from Texas. He's the guy who wrote the last edition of Robert's Rules.
This wasn't mere political rivalry from poor losers. It was a calculated attack. It was premeditated, using the January 6th fake state convention as both a shield and spear. In the shadow of public attention, 4 major MIGOP legal battles are being waged. The ones in Hillsdale, Kalamazoo, and Kent counties are directly targeting Karamo. The other one in Ingham.
What?
What?
Are they?
What?
Karamo chose to inject herself into the Kalamazoo County dispute, and Hillsdale has nothing to do with any of this stuff. Yeah, Nicole says stop trying to use logic. It goes against their beliefs. Yeah, that was a January 6th convention we held, according to Ken Byer, but whatever. All right.
County threatens to expose a vast network of corruption tied to the MIGOP building. Together, they formed a pincer movement designed to crush
obsessed with the
Karamo
building
and bury the truth. In a twist laden with irony, Chair McDaniel created an RNC Kangaroo report to strip Karamo of her credentials, while conveniently ignoring the evidence that would undermine their cause. President Trump shows up in Detroit with a hammer to nail the coffin shut on the America First movement by telling us that Pete Hoekstra is our chair.
Your new Michigan Republican Party chairman, former Congressman Pete Hoekstra.
Let me tell you this. My dad still isn't Santa Claus, and Petey Boy is not our chair. This underscores the depths to which these conspirators.
They're very mad at Trump. They are so mad at Trump right now. What was it? I think it was Ken Byer, but someone referred to it. No, it was Robert Owens called him some guy from Florida. Some guy from Florida can't tell you who the chair is.
Well, and they're pushing hard on the QAnon comms, right? The hoaxstra. Listen to how he pronounced it, right? And when we pointed out that Trump said Quran no at the Oakland County Lincoln Day dinner, it was, oh, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. Trump wasn't saying anything. But now that he says hoaxstra, it's a big deal for them, right?
How else would you say his name that you couldn't make it seem like you're saying hoax? I don't.
Yeah, I mean that's how it's spelled. It's actually hoekstra, like hook. But if you don't know Dutch, you wouldn't say it that way. You'd say hoekstra. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. I think you guys are missing it right now. Trump is playing 4D chess. You don't even understand. He's putting hoaxstra out in front so that we can all see the maligned and misinformation and the deep state. And then Kristina's just going to come out in this glorious golden white robe and just going to take over the party and lead us to that. You guys completely missing this whole thing.
Yeah. Hey, on
4D chess.
Gamer, base Gen Xer says, Adam, I took your advice and did permanent absentee voter today and handed my ballot to the clerk. Good job. Strongly encourage everybody to do the same thing. Vote in person, absentee early. All right, let's finish this off.
Will sink to maintain their grip on power. The globalist weapons of mass destruction were wielded with precision against the backdrop of political turmoil to destroy our peace of mind and to get us to quit. They want us to surrender. Right now, we are fighting against consensual tyranny. We still have a choice. It's up to us. The only way that they win is if we give up. Oh yeah, Patriot Act Pete, Kristina just called you out. She's challenging you to come to the old Joe Louis Arena for a March 2 delegate vote down. The question—
Hey, see you there, buddy. Pete will see you there.
I mean,
go to the old Joe Louis.
All by yourself.
Arena on March 2nd, and we'll have.
I'm a Detroiter. I don't know. Let's just be a little technical here. Joe Louis Arena was torn down. There's a big hole in the ground. If you'd like to all convene in the hole in the ground that is the former Joe Louis Arena, you can go ahead and do that.
See you there, guys. But I mean, seriously, folks. In the real world, there's no do-overs. Sorry. If you want to see how this is going to be how this will be adjudicated, that's what's happening in the courtroom in Kent County right now. That's where this is going to be settled. All right, and why would they throw away the thousands of dollars they've been spending on litigation to have a rematch on their terms? That's just ridiculous. Emma Birch says they are very mad at Trump. I saw someone posted an interview with Kristina on Stu Peters' show. They slammed Trump, and for whatever reason, the Jews. It was bizarre, to be honest. Amazing.
I predict that when they lose in court, they're going to form their own third party.
See ya.
I hope so. I think, Mindy, I'm concerned that they're going to try and push their way in and fight us for territory. But I hope you're right.
They're never going to
10
stop.
10 seconds left to go.
Go ahead.
Let's close it down.
Do you have the honor and the courage to show up? The storm is upon us.
Storm.
Be the thunder and light.
Yeah, do that. Awesome.
Of course, they had to close with the storm.
Oh, of course.
Hey, Adam, look, I think, eventually we're going to have this thing. And I had this conversation with a precinct delegate at my convention. He stood up and said, I feel hoodwinked. And I didn't deny it. I didn't debate him on the issues. And I said, you should. You should feel hoodwinked. Somebody told you you can walk in here, raise your hand and say, point of order, and all of a sudden the party does whatever you say. And that wasn't the case. It was never the case. So all these people out there that have been told that Kristina on a white horse will come and save the day, and it hasn't been true, and it hasn't been true, and it hasn't been true. Should they feel hoodwinked? Yeah. But who should they blame? People that told them.
Yeah. They and to people who are saying, like, Patty agrees with Holly, they're not going to stop. Jason says, then we don't stop. I mean, look, folks, this is the reality. We are fighting against institutions of power. That means the radical left. That means the corrupt Republican establishment. That also means this group of people who, at their core, are orchestrated and coordinated by the radical left, deep state agents, because of course they are. They set up and controlled and initiated and coordinated the January 6th events. They instigated and controlled the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping. Of course, they're involved in the Republican Party in Michigan. Of course they are. And they're not going to go away ever, because that's the reality of fighting power. Is they never get tired because they have institutional support behind them. And that's the way it goes. And all you can do is wise up and keep on fighting. And I would also say, I think at the end of the day, this is not going well for them. And I know it's easy to be frustrated. And that's what their goal is, guys, is to get you to give up, go away, say it's not worth the trouble. I don't want to deal with the personal attacks. And I've known people that have disappeared from the scene because they are tired of the personal attacks. And it's like, sorry, that's what doing battle with evil is. Mm-hmm. And, if they're going to, wave the Bible around and do all this other stuff and wrap themselves in righteousness, the fact is, the people that are sticking with us and fighting against this conspiracy are the righteous people, and they need to keep on doing what they're doing. And it's going to be, I think, thank you, and to everyone in the chat who's agreeing, that's kind of you. And I think we're going to have a great result tomorrow. And I think next Saturday, I think we're going to have once again a victory, because at the end of the day, they can't get their people to go to Grand Rapids, because that would be admitting that Hoekstra is the rightful chair. They are not going to let that house of cards fall. So we're going to have to carry on. We set an example for the other states where the same kind of stuff is happening, because it is. We'll have to have another chat with Scott McManson to talk about that, because he's got a lot of amazing research into that. I'm sorry, John, you want to say something? Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I'm a betting man. What do you think the over-under is that when we win in court? Because I'm very forward-thinking. When we win in court tomorrow, the spin will be that there was a large victory for Kristina Karamo in the courts, and there'll be an email chain about it, and that'll be blasted all over social media. What's the over-under on that? Because I'm going to take that bet.
You go 100%. 100%. They've lost a lot of places, and they just either ignore it or deny it. And then the worst is when they flip it around and say it just flat out didn't happen.
I think depending on the type of loss, if it's any kind of TRO not issued, it's a win for them, they'll say. If TRO goes out and Kristina is prohibited from calling herself chair any longer, they're going to say the court's illegitimate. That'll be their next go-to. It'll be one or the other.
I think there's two different kinds of they. I think there's they who are actually like behind this and orchestrating it. And then I think there's another they that is like all of these people like you and I who are just caught up in it, and maybe we're newer to politics and like Matt said, got hoodwinked into this, and they're starting to slowly, some of them see that they were hoodwinked, and that's a hard thing to recognize and acknowledge to yourself and to others, because it's embarrassing. But if there are people like that, that are watching this, I think that we have more in common with them, that they, not the other they, not the ones who are behind all this, but the ones who got wrapped up in it. We still have more in common with them than we don't. And I just wanted to show everyone, like, this was in my desk drawer. I have so much, I campaigned so hard for Kristina between August and November. I still have some of her pamphlets in my basement. Like, I was a Kristina supporter when she was running for SOS. And a lot of us were, and there's a lot of us who voted for her for chair, because we also thought she'd be a good chair. We are not anti-Kristina. We are not anti-grassroots. We are not establishment. We're not pro Betsy DeVos. And I just want to make sure people know that door, we still need to make sure that door is still open when people realize they've lost.
It's not personal, isn't it? That's all it is.
Yep. Yeah. That's a great thought to end the stream on. And I think with that, we'll call there's 90 minutes for a midweek stream. I'm sure there'll be more. I'm sure there'll be more to talk about tomorrow, folks, but we'll see. We will keep an eye on our channels. If you're not already subscribe to us on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and X. And that will do us for tonight. Dwayne says to see it tomorrow, and I also said that Sport KK now. I'm considered a rhino. That's the way that goes. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time. Thanks for all you do for liberty. Until then, peace out.